Yes.
Trustee Fritas,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Lamos,
Yes.
Trustee Pomponio. I wonder if she knows to go in this one. Okay.
I did text, but
Okay. I saw that. All right. Trustee Sage.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
This concluded our closed session. I'm just waiting for the rest of the board members to come over. It is now 7 o'clock. And I'm going to call our virtual board meeting to order for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. And if we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to
The flag.
to the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty for all. Thank you. Southgate's mission statement, learning for life. Our vision statement, Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Item D, revision approval of the agenda. Have you all had a chance to look over the agenda? If so, we'll take a motion to approve that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Pamponio. Has anybody seen that would like to second that motion? Supported by Mr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing none. Teresa, will you please roll call us on that?
Mr.
Motion?
Uphammer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries, and that moves us to item E, citizens' comments. Ms. Irvine, do we have any citizens' comments this evening?
Yes, we do have one citizen comment from Robert Pulowski at 12757 Chestnut Street. Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe, but I do have some concerns and questions for you guys tonight. Now, since you guys are starting to ease the students back into the habit of going back into schools for face-to-face learning, we go back to dealing with the issue of bullying again because of coming back into the schools for learning face-to-face. Now, my question is, what can we do more to put an end to bullying in this district besides the forms that you guys have on your website to fill out and send into the building administrators when there's bullying going on in a school inside this district? What can we do more to fix that and put bullying to an end for good in the district, though? Now, I know talking to a staff member is one of the only and easiest options to let someone know if bullying is going on in a school, but we need more tools besides the two that I just mentioned if we want to put a stop to bullying in the district and school districts all across the country. But just this district I'm only focused on tonight. If anyone who is watching this meeting tonight has seen the movie Wonder, it will tell you a lot about students getting bullied in schools for no reason because the person who's doing it has no reason why he's bullying this person. To their mind, it's probably a thrill to them. But also it points out prime factors on why we need to change when it comes to this type of topic, though. I have not been bullied at all in my life, so I can't relate to people who have been bullied in their life. But the only reason I'm bringing the subject up tonight is because to stick up for people that have gone through that and letting them know you have a voice and you don't have to be silent because you're not alone. And there are people that can support you and relate to you when it comes to when you have been bullied by someone. Just not me, because I've never been through it. But anyway, to wrap this topic up in general, the only message I'm going to send out tonight to the Board of Education is we need a change when it comes to bullying in our schools in this district. And that's the message I'm going to send out tonight to the board. That's all I have to say on the topic. Thank you for acknowledging my comment tonight. And I will get back with you, Ms. Irvine, via phone call since you have called me back recently regarding the comments I made at the last board meeting, and it ends up being phone tag afterwards. Maybe it's not my week. I don't know. But I'll reach out to you tomorrow if you're available. Thank you. I also let Mr. Kemp and Mr. Himmick know that I said hello. It's been a while since I talked to them, and I'm wondering how things have been. But other than that, hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the week and a great weekend as well. Hopefully the next board meeting in the future I can attend and speak at is hopefully the board meeting in the board meeting room at the high school or middle school. Then you get to hear the public comments over the microphone in person, including my comments, as well as after a long year of no social interaction when everything was remote at the time. Hopefully it will be soon. I will be looking forward to it when you give the okay to have these meetings in person. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Pulaski, and I speak for the board when I let you know that that we do take that subject very seriously. Ms. Irvine will follow up with you. Before we go on further, I made a mistake. We came from a closed session where we did a roll call, but we I didn't roll call us back into session here. So just for the record, Ms. Grahowski, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Mr. Estheimer.
Here.
Mr. Freitas,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Lamos,
Here.
Dr. Pomponio,
Here.
Mr. Sage.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. This takes us to our presentation for this evening, the GSRP preschool presentation. Ms. Irvine, who will be presenting that this evening?
I will be presenting, but I do have staff here that can also answer questions as well.
Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. What I'd like to do, I do have some slides here. I want to make sure that I go to the slideshow, if I can get to that. I have not worked with this one as much. Okay, we'll just start from here. We do have a GSRP Great Start Readiness Program option, which for our school district means that we have the option to have free preschool for our students, up to 72 slots in our case. And here are some of the pieces of the program itself. So the opportunity for us to have free preschool for 2021, we would have the opportunity to have 72 slots, which would be 4 classrooms worth. We would house them at Asher during the 2021 school year. We have the option to have both in-person and virtual. This would be a program that would go for full day, Mondays through Thursdays, starting April 7th and going through June 17th. There would be no residency requirements or no qualifying factors in this case. This is something that's pretty unique to the opportunity that's here for this year. If we can get this program going for the 2021 school year, we will get full funding for every student who is interested in participating during that time frame. So it wouldn't be prorated for the amount of time. We would also have the opportunity to get all funding for the full 72 slots, whether or not we were able to get all of our students there or able to fill them for 72 in total. For the 21-22 school year, we have 72 slots available, again, 18 slots per classroom. And what we would do is put our preschools into our elementary schools so that every elementary school that we would have would be pre-K through 5. That's a pretty substantial change. Certainly right now we do have a child care program that is a preschool-based program, tuition-based. This would provide us with some options for students that are currently possibly in that program, or that would still have an option for the tuition-based if that is something that our community still needs. We would would take advantage of. We would have this from October 1st through May 27th on an annual basis. There would be no residency requirements, but there would be qualifying factors. And I don't know if any of you in my team has done the slideshow on this particular program.
If you click present, Sharon, if you look at the top, there's a present button.
Oh my goodness. I looked at that several times. How's that? Is that better, everyone? I think so. All right. So what is this program? The program has a state curriculum involved. It's high scope or creative curriculum. The program has home visits September through and June as well. There are parent involvement requirements. However, it does go through Wayne Risa. They would provide materials and furniture for 4 classrooms. So that is not something we would have to take out of pocket. Our per pupil allocation for these would be $7,250. We would get that for each student that would be a participant or enroll in our full day program. And when you consider that all of our students K through 12, the per pupil funding is $8,111. That is pretty close to full funding for that. We also would have an opportunity to have some additional transportation money if we decided to move into busing for our preschool students. So for the 2021 school year, full funding. That means $522,000, regardless of the number of students that we enroll, regardless of how long they're in the program. When we look at expenditures for 2021, it would cost about $80,000 for 4 teachers, preschool teachers. These would be UTS teachers, so they would be certified. We would also have 4 associate teachers, and that's about $30,000 for the 2021 school year. We would have to have an early childhood specialist. We do have a principal on staff who has filled this role in the past. That's Ms. Chilson. We would have curriculum training, materials assessment responsibilities that would amount to about $20,000 per year. And if you kind of do the math, you can see that we have $522,000 with maybe a little over $100,000 worth of costs for the first year, which means that we can use the money that's available that would come through for this year for improvements in our facilities that will support our preschool students as well. For instance, we have the opportunity to use that money to clear out the landscaping mulch it's in the playgrounds at our elementary schools and replace it with certified playground mulch. That is a very important feature that needs to be done and will be done this spring, and this is an opportunity for us to do it. We will be able to use that money towards licensing requirements that include upgrades to, or at least additions to playgrounds to make sure that there are play sites for children at the age of 4. We also can use this to consider the purchase of buses if we decide that we want to offer transportation services to preschool. So those are another option with the idea of possibly growing that opportunity in the future for others. So what does an implementation rollout look like? Right now, Crystal Priest is working on our facility licensing at Asher for the rest of this year. So that is a process that's going from February 13th through March 26th. And then, of course, we've been meeting, Michelle and I have met with Wayne Risa and Barb, February 22nd and 23rd, just to get some planning meetings in order. We have our board presentation to kind of give you an overview this evening. We would post for teachers and associate teachers starting tomorrow. We would look at curriculum selection early next week. And on March 9th, we would bring the GSRP contract with Wayne Risa to the board for approval. From March 10th to June 1st, we would enroll students into the GSRP program for 2021. So we are already working on some advertising materials for our kindergarten enrollment. We've now added preschool enrollment in those materials, and will alert our community that it is something that is available even this year for our kindergarten students that will be scheduled for kindergarten next year. And it might be a good way for them to kind of ease into a returning to school or going to school environment. Then in April 7th, we would start the GSRP programming as we have students enroll. And again, that enrollment can be continuous as they come in. And then April 7th through October 1st, we will be in a recruitment and enrollment process. There is a fine distinction between GSRP recruitment. It's called recruitment until the State Aid Act is actually approved, because the State Aid Act actually sets aside the money for the GSRP programming for the state. And just to kind of give you some perspective, GSRP is pretty common in school districts in Michigan. Riverview has a very strong program. Wyandotte has a program. Lincoln Park has a program, pretty extensive program. Most school districts around us have some form of GSRP programming, and it is an important step in making sure our students are in the path of achievement and moving forward into kindergarten with some strong skill sets. It's also an early chance for our Southgate residents to attach to us. And we did meet with our kindergarten teachers, for instance, yesterday to give them a heads up about this. And the overwhelming response was very positive. They feel that it would be very important for our district to have this option. and also told their own stories about how when their preschool aged child came of age, they didn't have an option in Southgate, so they chose a different site and got so attached to that site they kept their children there through preschool, kindergarten, and then further, into their school years. So those early impressions and those early relationships that we form with our families and with our students make a big difference in that long-term commitment to our district. So it is really, I think, an important step in the direction of pulling our community back to full participation in our school system. So I want to give you that as a heads up of what we're looking at. And we would continue to provide the school district with some information as it rolls out. So I wanted to bring that to you as a presentation. I know I've given you a heads up about this, and I certainly would be open to any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Ms. Irvine. Is there any questions for Ms. Irvine regarding the GSRP program?
Just one.
Yes.
Can you go back over the financials? How do they line up? The revenues I saw,
Mhm.
and then each of the expenses. I was confused by those. Which of those will apply for the next year?
Okay, so for the 2021 school year, the cost is prorated. The expenditure cost is prorated. The revenue is not prorated. So it would cost us a little over $100,000 to run it this year. We would still get an unprorated revenue amount of $522,000.
Got it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I realize with the slide, not only was it tiny, right. But moving forward into the next year, we would be looking at a personnel cost of nearly $440,000. So now we're closer to actual costs of the program. So that extra chance for us this year, when the initial call was made to the state and to Wayne Risa, it was how do we get it started for next year? And they said, I don't think you want to miss this chance right now, because this is an opportunity for you to collect full revenue while having only partial expenditures, and then really accumulating a block of money that can be spread out into your elementaries for improvements in those facilities that will support not just the preschool children, but also other children in the schools.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Spage?
I just want to make sure I'm off. So thank you. I love it. Number one. Number two, is there any additional grants that we could get by providing this program?
Well, the full money is the grant. The grant, it's all one grant. Is there any additional money that we could get? We could get more slots. So let's just say we have 72. So we pull in 72. I will tell you that every individual right now who's in tuition-based programming can immediately move over and stop having to pay tuition this year.
Okay.
Because there will be there are no eligibility requirements or income requirements for this year. So any family of Southgate who wants to bring their kindergarten age child who's going to be kindergarten age in 21, 22 can come in and have a preschool experience. We're saying 72 slots. If we have space and we have interest, that can grow. We don't have to limit ourselves to 72. Now, if we have, after this year, though, there will be some qualifications, some eligibility requirements, and need, meaning income-based, can they afford a private preschool experience versus, not. There are those guidelines that will go into place. And if we have more than 72 or more than the number of slots that we have available, then we'll have to start prioritizing based on those need variables.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and what a great recruitment tool and marketing recruitment tool to get these families in our school system at such a young age and help fill our kindergarten classes. Mr. Green.
So this is obviously, I heard, for Southgate residents or any resident. There's no residency requirement. And so preschool, for April to June, it will be preschool students that will be in the fall kindergarten students, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and initially I said it was Southgate residents because when I was a principal of a program that was MSRP, and back 10 years ago, it was their school of choice was not an option. I found out through our meetings over the last couple of days, they've actually stopped that. And so families from Allen Park, they don't have a preschool program right now. They're not running one, so they can come over and join us if they wanted to. You know, those actually are open and will be into the future.
You still looking for a car because you slipped and said MSRP instead of GSRP. So
No, it was MSRP back then.
yeah, I know.
But sure, yeah, right. That's still looking handy.
Anyway, so that's good. And the email I think Ms. Chilson sent out, is that are you setting up time slots, right? Is that what that's about? That was set out to some parents and families about.
No, that is actually going to be a discussion or work session.
Okay.
That's a completely different topic. And
So
that has to do with the opening of our elementary in-person slots.
Okay.
I think he's referring to the kindergarten screening, right?
Oh, okay.
Right,
I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the screening for the incoming kindergartners in the fall.
Okay. So they can go to preschool now when the open period, March 10th, June 1st. So if you have a 4-year-old preschool, they're going to come in on this one enrollment period, March 10th to June 1st or whenever, to fill the slots. And then they still are going to go to the kindergarten, round up to get ready to go see if they are going to come into the school in the fall. So those are two separate things. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Do we have any other questions? Mr. Craig. Darlene, are you next?
Yeah, I'll go after Jason.
Okay, thank you.
So typically, at least the preschool programs I'm familiar with run like half days. So it's mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, mornings, Tuesday, Thursday, afternoons, Monday. Do we still get the same per pupil allotment for half day groups, or
no? If we decided to run some half day slots and have some half day slots, so let's say we decided we're going to have 3 full day programs, and we get parents who aren't interested in full day; they're interested in half. We would get half the funding for half day.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Pomponio. You're on mute. Sorry, dear.
Sorry. So after this year, is there a potential that it could cost us money down the road, or?
Well, you always have the situation that will happen if you have certified teachers and they start climbing the step scale. Then when you start to look at it as a self-contained cost center, it can overreach your cost center. But at the end of the day, you're balancing that by having less experience in other contexts in your general fund. So your costs for teachers are kind of going to come from the same source. That's how much our teachers cost, for instance. And whether they were teaching in our preschool or teaching kindergarten, we would still have the cost of that teacher somewhere in our organization.
Right.
So there's always that possibility. If you talk about somebody who's at the top of the pay scale in that role, but from the experiences that everyone's had, especially I've had, that other districts have had, if you don't make those your certified bargaining unit teachers, what they will tend to do is you'll have a transition of teachers happening often, because as soon as they have a spot available in kindergarten where they can get into the bargaining unit, they'll leave and go there. And you stop building that relationship, long-term relationship between a teacher that is beloved in the community, that makes all the difference for that early relationship.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Freitas or Mr. Sage? Are you guys good? All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Irvine. Appreciate the presentation. Sounds like a great opportunity. Look forward to hearing more. That brings us to item G, our superintendent update. And do you have something for us there this evening?
Well, I just wanted to let you know that we are excited to have our high schoolers back, and it's going well. And I think I've heard so many from from so many of the high school staff too that are saying it's so nice to have everybody back. You know, this has been almost a year. And so it started and we're excited to see everybody. Another thing that I don't know if you are aware, you may be aware, you know, our food service program is offering the EBT benefits to our families again. Moving forward. And if you don't know what that means, for families that qualify for free or reduced lunch, or in the case of all of our elementaries and middle school, because all of our families get that benefit, for the months that we've been remote, families will get $127 per month of those remote months to their families. Once we get all the information in, it'll come directly. We will have, for high school students, it'll have to be based on the applications that they submit. But this is a huge benefit to our families and communities. So I just wanted to highlight that's coming as well. But good stuff, and we're excited.
All right, thank you. And you said we didn't have a finance update tonight, correct? Okay.
Correct.
I did notice that we don't have any of the financials in our packet this week. Is there a reason why normally we have the financials to review, but there isn't any in the packet? I know it's not on the consent agenda either, so I know that it was purposely left out. I just wondered why.
Do you mean the disbursements?
Yes.
I was told were included for January in last board meeting. Is that right, Teresa?
Okay, thank you. All right, that moves us to item I, our consent agenda, which consists of minutes from February 2nd, 2021 winter retreat, the February 9th, 2021 regular board meeting, and our HR update.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Paponio. Do we have a second for that?
Sure, support.
Mr. Lamas supports that. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. Ms. Grahowski, we call the question.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Green, sorry, Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. And that takes us to item J. This is our action items on our agenda. So the first action item that we have is approval of the purchase of the replacement slide for Allen Elementary. Ms. Irvine, will you present that for us tonight?
Yep. As you all are aware, our board policy asks that all items that exceed 3,500 be brought to the board for approval. And this falls within that range. We're requesting the approval of the replacement of the tube slide at Allen Elementary at a total cost of $5,034.58. This has been broken and blocked off for a couple of years now, and we need this fixed. And moving forward, the cost of the replacement will be attributed to the 2015 bond program, so it will not come from general fund. And because of safety requirements and warranties associated with installation, both the purchase of the equipment and the installation will be handled by the original vendor, Mid-States Recreation. Multiple bids were not collected in this. We want to make sure that all of that's warranted and it's their product. So that's what we have here available.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Paponio.
Is there any prior list of priorities that this is on, or are there any other items that may come before this, or is this just something that we need to fix as a security precaution?
We need to fix it for the safety and security of our playgrounds, but the other, as it's becoming, I'm becoming aware of some things. As I know about them, we're bringing some of them forward. For instance, finding out, I've been meeting with PTOs and able to find out kind of what the priority lists or concerns have been in those settings. And the other part that has come up is the playground mulch issue and the fact that we may not be at some safety regulations that we need to be. So those are coming forward as safety concerns at this point. because that's available.
So do we have a running list of issues per building that we've had with the facility updates for the bond? So I know that when we reviewed it, we had a list of things that were old, outdated, and things that need to be fixed. So I was just wondering, per building, do we have that kind of a list?
Jacob and I are going to be walking the buildings. I don't have that list yet. So as they're coming up, they're coming forward. But we do know that you have had some, most of them have gotten kind of pushed into the bond and are being covered by that facility needs assessment piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sage.
Yeah, so I've been actually talking about the slide even prior to being on the board, so I appreciate us tackling this. Number one, from a liability standpoint, we're going to be saving more money than we're spending without kid. You know, we don't want any kid getting hurt out there. It does seem a little bit inflated as far as the cost of the slide. That's just my own opinion. I'd love to see other bids, but from a liability standpoint, you know, I'd rather decrease the risk and save from a lawsuit.
Mr. President?
Go ahead, Dr. Pomponia.
Just based on some of the bids that we've gotten in the past with the Park and Rec Commission and even with the school district, the equipment, I know it sounds like a lot for a slide, but that's about the going price for that. They're very expensive.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Rick, did you have something? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just I think Dr. Pomponio made an interesting comment, and that was if we could begin to develop an inventory of such needs, and it sounds like you and Jacob are about to do that.
We're going to walk buildings.
That way we've got a collection that we can prioritize and spend where we choose to spend on purpose. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, did you have a comment? Mr.
No,
Green?
I was just going to go ahead and make a motion if that's okay.
That's fine. I can talk to you later about something.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Craig.
So I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the replacement tube slide for Allen Elementary in the amount of $5,034.58 from Mid States Recreation.
All right, is there a second by Mr. Green? All right, and any further discussion? Mr. Green? No? Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, Ms. Grahowski, will you please roll call vote?
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Freitas.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Motion carries. Brings us to action item number 2, approval of the 1-year extension for Dean Transportation. Who will be presenting this?
So I will go ahead and start this, but I'm going to transfer it to Barb for any questions that may come up. We do have a 3-year contract with Dean that is set to expire on June 30th, 2021. At our request, the transportation offered a 1-year contract extension of these services moving forward. The annual 2.7 cost increase embedded in their expiring 3-year contract. So they are keeping and maintaining the current annual increase. Dean Transportation has provided excellent service over the past 3 years, and they make every effort to reduce costs to the Southgate Community Schools by combining bus runs and making sure that we are able to save money when possible. And we kind of regularly, from year to year, find that the projected and actual does show us that those attempts are working, and that we are not actually spending as much as the contract may have initially been for. The current contract and subsequent extension embeds a discount for school closures of 45% during the district's closure for remote instruction. In 2020, the district saved quite a bit of money because of the discount. So over the past 3 years, the cost of special education transportation, and then it goes through that we've saved pretty significantly. So we do recommend the 1-year extension with a planned full district, taking a look at what we might do in the future at another time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Irvine?
I have a question.
Mr. Craig was first, then Miss Dr. Poponio. Okay, Dr. Poponio first. Go ahead.
Okay, is there a reason why we wouldn't go out for bids? Because the only reason why I'm saying this, because I know that when we first took Dean on or approved them, there was a lower bid and we were kind of criticized for it being a more expensive bid. So I was wondering why we wouldn't do that, or is it just because of the year that we've had, just to transition easier into the next year?
Well, we want to do a full comprehensive one here coming up to understand kind of what it would look like for full busing coming forward down the road. And so to get us to that point, we couldn't do that now, timing wise. But maybe Barb, you can talk a little bit more about the decision that was made about requesting the 1-year extension versus a full RFP. I think that was a conversation that you may have had with the prior superintendent.
Yes, she had actually suggested that we get a 1-year extension based on the excellent service that we had been receiving, their proactiveness to cut our costs by combining runs wherever they could, which is great. I mean, had they not done that, we would have been paying the full amount that was projected, except for the COVID closure costs. So, I mean, it was a combination of those two things and the fact that we're going to do an extensive review, as Superintendent Irvine said, for the 21-22 school year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Thank you. So I guess just kind of looking at what I remember anyway is, yeah, Trinity, who was the competing bid, was lower the last time. But I would bet that with these savings that we're probably coming right back in there. I don't remember the actual amounts that we were talking about, but I think this might have even made up some of the difference in those. And the words excellent service was never put forward with our previous transportation contractor. So I don't have an issue with anything we see here. And I guess that's what I was gonna, kind of just ask if we'd had any kind of complaints, but I think 3 times reiterating that, good service is probably answering that question for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. And judging by the facial expression of somebody on our staff that deals with them on a daily basis, I believe she agrees with you. Any further discussion? Or any other questions, I should say?
I'll make a motion.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Lamas.
I move to extend the contract with Dean Transportation for 1 year, 2021-2022 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. And do we have a support for that motion? Mr. Craig? All right. Motion by Lamas, supported by Craig. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Go ahead and call the question, please.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Grahowski. Motion carries. All right. Last action item of the night. This is approval of the suspension of state assessment requirements for high school graduation. Mr. Irvine, will you be presenting tonight?
Yes, but I will have our curriculum director, Ms. Baker Herring, available for any questions that might come up related to this. So Board Policy 2002, Learning and Achievement, has the following graduation requirements, which is to graduate and receive a high school diploma from the school district. A student must successfully complete all coursework required by law, all credits, coursework, and assessments required by the school district, and all other requirements that may be established and published from time to time by the board. We did have a shutdown last spring, obviously, that prevented juniors from taking the SAT, and that as required for graduation and for graduating seniors. So the fact that not all juniors were able to take it, and not all seniors this year were required to take it. Obviously, there's varying levels of comfort about moving into a testing environment. And because it's not required by the state now, we want to make sure that we're not further requiring it above and beyond for graduation. We did hear today, or I believe it was today or yesterday, that the federal government came back and said that we would be responsible for assessments, but it did leave an out, meaning that those could be shortened, those could be adjusted, and our state superintendent is going back and saying, can we use benchmark assessments like NWEA instead? So we're waiting to see what the federal government will respond with. But to the extent that if at the end of the day, we have some of these typical state requirements waived, we don't want to perpetuate a graduation requirement attached to those. And it's just really a formality to say, insofar as the state suspends them, we'll also suspend them for graduation requirement.
Thank you very much. And do we have any questions for staff? No? All right. And we will entertain a motion then for this action item number 3.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend state assessment requirements for high school graduation to the extent that they have been waived by the state of Michigan for 2021.
Thank you. And do we have support for that motion?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? Yeah, Mr. Green, go ahead.
Just want to make clear for the viewing public that the wording sometimes when we hear these things that we have to make sure that this is pending that it's waived by the state. If the state of Michigan says we have to do this, we don't, I just foresee something where the state of Michigan comes back and says you have to do this, and then somebody tries to revert back to this board meeting because they're confused and say, well, you said that, my son or daughter didn't have to take this test. We're recommending to suspend it as long as the state suspends it or gives us some variable of how to, adjust it, modify it to some degree. So we're at the disposal of the state. So this is pending what the state law or through the federal government, what the state puts down as a decree to school districts, just to make that clear.
For that clarification. Any other discussion? All right, Ms. Grahowski, you please call the question.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Do we have any employee representatives speaking tonight?
No, we
Scheduled.
don't. But I will say that I will be pulling together or at least sending out something for our policy subcommittee to meet. And this might be the action item that we just did. There are an easy tweak to make this kind of relevant in the future, where we automatically tie our requirements for testing to what the state requires, and that way we never have to do this again. So I think those are a really quick fix that our policy subcommittee can work on. So I'll be sending that out to you just as a follow-up to that last agenda item.
Thank you. Do we have any information and announcements from any of our board members here tonight?
Mr. President.
Dr. Pomponio?
Yes, I just wanted to say that me as a board member and also the board for years, we've been zero tolerance for bullying in the district. And we've had the anti-bullying forms or bullying complaint forms that are and should still be available in the offices throughout the district. So if anyone's being bullied, there's a complaint form in the offices. And then also there's that app that's still good, the OK to Say. It's directly to the state police, I believe, but that's something you can use and always go to an administrator. And, it's always OK to say. So, we used to get the anti-bullying reports with the superintendent. So if we can get those again, now that they're back in school, we can closely monitor that. And like I said, we've been a zero tolerance for bullying, in this district. So I just want to reiterate that to the community and to the parents. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio. Anybody else? Mr. Lamas, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say I was excited that we're back to school. I'm really happy we were able to offer the parents the choice to do as they felt best for their kids. And most appreciative of all of our staff for making it operationally sound. So not an insignificant task. And I'm sure everyone's excited we're back. So thank you.
Mr. Green, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, just real quick, I want to reiterate that I want to commend the community for bearing with us, whether you agreed with us or not, when this board and many boards, all boards throughout the state of Michigan and the country had difficult decisions and overturn. We stuck with our plan. We didn't modify it. And we did modify it to a degree, but we stayed within the parameters of for the most part, of the ever-changing and fluidity of the laws, without much help from, in my opinion, the state government on this one. So I want to thank the community and my fellow board members. Also, I would be remiss if welcome the teachers back, and the athletes, and my superstar Fridas, athlete over there in the basketball team. And then, I would be, again, remiss if I did not say that there's a number of board members here in the last 6 months alone that have faced tragedy and are going through some tough times. And through it all, they've put on, a solid face and come to the board meetings and work behind the scenes and did everything they could, with family loss and tragedy and going through really tough times. And the community needs to know that, and I'm not talking about me. I'm the least important person on this board as far as I'm concerned, but these people that I work with are really trying to do the best for the community. And it's I think this community is really lucky to have the people sitting on this board that are living their lives and going through some tragedies and still, keeping their head above water and doing what they need to do in this community. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. And thank you for the rest of your comments, everyone. I agree with my board members. Welcome back, and thank you to all our staff and students, and we're excited to have you back. I just have one quick thing I wanted to read. This is a communication that I got, a letter that was included in my packet, addressed to the board president. It says, "Dear Timothy Estimer, on behalf of the Wayne Risa Board of Education, we want to congratulate you and all of our schools in Wayne County on the successful passage of the Regional Enhancement Millage Renewal. We know how much these added resources have meant to local school districts this past 4 years and are thrilled that this millage will be available to Wayne County schools through 2028. The renewal was successful across communities in Wayne County, and this success came from a team effort by all school systems to get the word out to the constituents what the millage was about and how it benefits students. So thank you for your efforts. We look forward to our continued partnership with you, as well as work to meet the needs of your students." And it's signed by the president, the secretary, vice president, treasurer, and trustee of Wayne Risa. So I just wanted to pass that information on to you all. And with that, I will take a motion for adjournment. And before I get that motion, just remember, we are going to go into a work session here. Follow the link in your email. So who would like to make, Mr. Green?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support. And supported by Mr. Craig. Any discussion? Seeing none. Will you please roll call vote us out, Ms. Krahowski?
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio.
Yes.
Thank you. It is 7:49. We're adjourned. See you in a little bit. Well, let's call this meeting to get to order. This is our work session. And if we could have Ms. Grahowski or Ms. Irvine, whoever's going to be taking attendance tonight, I'd appreciate it if you do that now.
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes, present.
Mr. Freitas,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Lamos.
Here and just not, no mic on, it looks like.
Dr. Pomponio,
Here.
Mr. Sage.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, looks like we have everybody in the room. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Ms. Irvine, you have the floor.
Yeah, so we are now at the next phase of our continuity of learning plan. And, you know, we had a lot of discussion, and parents, you know, who made the selection for elementary asked if there would be another option, you know, another time period in which they could make that choice again. So I wanted to, we've talked a lot as a team, a principal team, our elementary team, curriculum, and our cabinet about what that would look like and when it would look like. And so this is kind of a discussion opportunity for kind of working through that piece. Our thoughts are as a team that we'd like to see the opportunity to come back in person if he hadn't chosen to do so for the remote elementary kids. The selection process happen next week, where we ask families that are remote to make the choice if they want to come back, and then have them start back in person right after spring break. So there's a little bit of transition time. Teachers have a chance to kind of prepare for them to join their class. We're looking at, you know, when we first asked our families to decide, we said we would aim for 15 to 20 per classroom. And we took everybody who said, yes, we want to do that. And we had class sizes that ranged from 11 to 20 or to 19. 19 was our biggest. And so we, at that point, said, well, go ahead and let families go into in-person if there's space. And at the time, we considered space to be up to 15. So 15 would be our target number. We knew that we had some classes that were higher because the initial interest was higher for those particular grades in those particular buildings. Since then, we've gotten families who have requested to come back. And we have some space in our schools, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. And now that I know how I'm dealing with these Google slides, I think this will work a little bit better. Our space right now looks like this. So in our young fives, we have about 6 spots at Allen and 7 spots at Grogan for a total of 13 spots available. If we targeted 20 as our maximum class size, we would have kindergarten 6 at Allen, 4 at Grogan, 8 at Fordline, and 14 spots at Shelters. For grade 1, first grade, we would have 10 spots at Allen, 16 at Grogan. Fordline would have 10 and Shelters would have 5. For second grade, Allen would have 10, Grogan would have 3, Fordline would have 11, and Shelters would have 10. For grade 3, we have 18 at Allen, 5 at Grogan, 14 Fordline, 16 at Shelters. For grade 4, we would have 8 at Allen, 3 at Grogan, 1 at Fordline, and 11 at Shelters. And at grade 5, we'd only have 1 spot available for Allen, 12 for Grogan, 17 for Fordline, and 8 for Shelters. So that gives us a total of about 234 seats available across the grade levels. And so we can consider that and would like to consider that moving forward to open that up. We initially said third trimester. Third trimester actually starts at the end of next week, and felt like we needed a little bit more time before we had those open up. So this is just kind of to start the dialogue around your thoughts on that reopening.
Go ahead. This is open forum.
Me?
Anybody who wishes to speak, go ahead.
All right, I didn't want to talk over somebody. So I'm actually in the thick of this. When this went down with our kids, I've got 4 kids in the district. You know, it was nice for the kids in middle school because they have the choice, right? They have the choice to be able to do one or the other.
Right.
My wife and I disagreed, and I will say that from a remote standpoint, my youngest, his teacher did an amazing job from the remote. I was set on him going back into school. My wife kind of differed on the opinion, and part of that is because of the instruction he was getting, you know, from the remote teacher, and also secondly, it's almost, I don't want to make it sound like it's a negative, but there's a bit of selling from a teacher standpoint too of what the teacher prefers and what they don't prefer. And my wife was somewhat sold on that. And again, the teacher did an amazing job remotely. And then we come to find out that we didn't have that same remote teacher. So, you know, without discussing this with my wife, which she runs the show, well, I'd love to have my kid back in school, you know, from an elementary standpoint. My middle schoolers love it because, you know, if they're late at sports one night till 10 o'clock at night, they have the option to do both, whether they go into school or not, which is kind of weird. Sorry.
Careful.
You're about to yell at me right now. So it gives them the option, the choice, you know, which is kind of nice. But with the elementary student, you know, it's all or none. And I believe his teacher did a phenomenal job remotely, but there was also a bit of a sales of how what the best thing would be for those kids. And then we found out that it wasn't going to be the same. You know, we didn't get that same teacher. We didn't get the same experience. And the new teacher's doing great too. So I don't want this to be a negative, but you know, I'd love to see my kid back in school. And I think again, as a board, we're giving a choice to the parents. And well, yeah, with these kids, they don't really have a choice. It's to the parents because they're age.
So what about
So thank you.
Mr. Craig.
So, Ms. Irvine, I'm sure you said it. I just missed it. This is pushing all the numbers up to 20. Is that our cap?
Yeah, the cap would be 20. So there would be no more than 20 in a classroom. I don't know that all the classrooms would get pushed up to that. It would depend on how many would be interested in coming back, but we wouldn't go beyond 20.
And that was our original cap amount that we had set, you know, with, hey, if it looks like this, then we're going to stay at 20. If we go over 20, then we got to talk about a hybrid model so that we can split people up and make space for people. So I think we're still staying within the parameters of what we originally had kind of promised. So I don't see any issues with moving this around. And we're just talking about elementary, correct? Right. So yeah, I don't see any issues with moving in that direction.
Is there a chance we could go over that? You know, like Andy's saying, if let's say hypothetically that, you know, the majority of the parents want to go back in school, is that going to be an issue from staffing or space?
So what we've been doing right now is we've had some families that have been in crisis and have absolutely needed to be in person, and they didn't have the spot available in their school, and they were offered another spot at another school that did have space. So when you look at the accumulation, the total number of slots available, I mean, we're talking about nearly 40 slots, you know, between 30 and 40 slots a grade level available somewhere across the district. So it could be in a temporary, you know, shift to another school to make sure that we kept that 20. It wouldn't be a permanent, you know, shift there, but that's how we've been handling it this far. So it would be important for whoever really wanted that option to be right there and getting that in there. And we'll take a look at what the outcome is, just like we did the first round, and see where we're at. I mean, if we really have everybody wanting to go back, I mean, I think we need to have maybe another conversation. You know, wow, these are results that we didn't expect, and how do we deal with them?
I think we're going to have that conversation coming up pretty soon. The way the numbers have been dropping and a lot more schools are starting to go back, there's going to be a lot more interest in possibly the fourth quarter. And what are your thoughts, or what have you been hearing about the legislators finally saying, hey, fourth quarter, we want everybody back in. That $250 incentive is a big
Good
incentive.
segue. Good, excellent segue. We did talk about this at our finance subcommittee meeting, that the legislature has passed the House now that they want to give an extra $250 per student if the school district is running 5 days, 5 full days. And that's an interesting thing we need to talk about right now. You know, if we have 200, if we get to an extra $250 per student to do that, do we need to make an adjustment on our plan? Because that might be a very quick, immediate change.
I am all for 5 days. That's my personal opinion. I'm out in Oakland County with my work, and I see what's going on out there. I'm all for it. My kids probably wouldn't be, but I am all for getting those kids in front of the teacher and, you know, the discipline and getting back to a schedule of some sort.
Yeah, we've eased into it, so it would be nice to event. I mean, I don't know what our plan was ultimately for how long we were going to stay with that virtual Wednesday. But, you know, at some point we obviously were talking about going to a full schedule. It's nice to have a little bit of a financial incentive. We certainly could use it. What do you think, Mr. Green?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's think about it more and see what it all looks like. First of all, it's got to pass the Senate, which it probably will, and then it's got to go to the governor. And you know, we get that whole. I'm not sure. I haven't looked as deep into this. I saw it a little bit. Is this subject to veto, or is that against her power on this one? How is it written? Do you know, Sharon?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's probably still subjected to veto. I don't know if she will or not. She's been against in the past tying money into schools going back when the numbers were higher. So how she reacts to this, I guess, is going to be the big case. But you know, I do believe under Michigan law that if it's written at something about 67% passing, which I don't think they'll get in the House and Senate, then it eliminates governmental or governor veto. But I don't think that's the process. But with the numbers going down and her saying we should go back, so I think that's the first thing to her. You know, that's the first hurdle. And then how does it look? How does it look if we go, you know, 5 days a week? I mean, we definitely have to take a look at that. So, hey man, I can't even get back to school in Southfield. So what do I know? We're one of the school districts around that nobody's back yet.
Do we have a potential plan in place for 5 days a week back in? Like it would.
Well, it would look, you know, like we would have currently, except we would just have the 5th day in place. We just wouldn't have a hybrid. Now, we'd have to look at the details of it. And does that mean everybody has to be back? Can you still have your remote options? You know, can you still have a virtual option? Is it just for those that are going in person that it is 5 days that they're going in person? I mean, it's in the details there. I don't think we would see a substantial difference going 4 days, 5 days versus 4 in our in-person side.
Yeah,
I will let the principals weigh in on that if they feel otherwise.
I also think that there's, you know, school districts, whether it's Plato, whether it's you know, Atlas, whether it's teachers, whatever, for health reasons, that's the new variable. You know, school districts have offered, a lot of school districts have offered some form of remote learning within their district anyway. So just a guess would be that it wouldn't be tied into everybody having to come back and not offering a virtual option. I could be 100% wrong, but I just had this conversation earlier with some people in my school district. I firmly believe that you're going to see somewhat of a paradigm of a shift in public education and education in general, where I think some sort of virtual learning is now going to be here to stay, because for some people it works. So I don't know if that's going to be tied that everybody has to come back, but I agree with Sharon. I think that those are just way too many variables still right now of how that's going to work. But, and then, you know, can we do it safely? It's nice to have $250 a pupil, but if and this is being, hopefully I'm 100% wrong on this, but if these new strands close school down again, or if the numbers start to go back up, are you going to, you know, is $250 a student worth it if we have outbreaks? So, you know, we have to discuss I agree with Neil. I think we have to start thinking about what it will look like, but to still think we have to be careful with the safety measures, of course, within the scope of this, seeing how how, the proof in the pudding of what all these variables are going to be. I think there's too many questions still.
Do we know?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Do we know what percentage of teachers got vaccinated so far?
We don't have an exact one. We're not keeping track of it. Not all of them are sharing that information because a lot of the people have done it individually and separately. We are about to send 150 of our staff back to the Wayne Community College on Saturday for vaccination. But a lot of our teachers did it on their own, independently. So I mean, I would say that we are in the 75% range. But they have their second. But
are you getting any pushback from teachers that don't want to be in the classroom that we need in the classroom, or no?
No, quite the contrary. Okay. When we're putting people on remote, they're not as excited about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, we are struggling to find remote teachers. It's not the in-person teachers.
Okay. Perfect.
It sounds like the two issues that you kind of brought forward tonight. The first one it seems like everybody was okay with the K-8 rollback, polling, getting as long as we're limiting those class sizes. That sounds like everybody was okay with that. The second part, jury's still out. We just need to get more information. But it looked like everybody's here is willing to listen, and if it benefits us and we can keep people safe, it's something that we want to hear about.
The other
one other
thing that I want to make sure that the board is aware, as we are asking families what their plans are for next year, they're asking us also how many options you're going to have. And our response right now is virtual or in person, not having a remote option in the middle. So that's our response at this point in time. Things could change, if we find ourselves back in the situation we found ourselves in at the beginning of last year, where your COVID cases, a new variant comes out, and now we're back in a similar situation. But I'm open to hearing your perspectives on it. But this is the time frame in which we kind of have to say what's available for next year and what's your interest level.
Kind of need a crystal ball to answer that question. But
right.
So, Mr. President,
go ahead.
So the options that we have now are virtual, remote, and in person. So you're saying that we're only offering in person and remote?
No, I'm just saying for next year,
right?
People plan for next year, rather than having this concurrent hybrid going on in classrooms where, you can be remote or you can be in person or you can be an Atlas.
Right.
We would expect that we're going to open up in person. And if they don't want to be in person, they have Atlas. We're not going to try to do this, learn from home or learn in person at the same time in the same classroom like we have right now.
Okay, so right now they're actually able to be in the classroom with the same in-person classroom virtually. That's what you're saying. The teachers are teaching all of them, right?
Right. Right now we have an in-person, we have a remote, and a virtual. We have 3 options. And so for middle school and for high school, these classes are running where the teacher's teaching. And some kids are kind of logging in to the class, and some kids are in person, but it's the same class.
Okay, is that Schoology, Schoology, or whatever that platform is? Is that what we're using for that?
Michelle, can you provide more?
Schoology, they're using Schoology right now, in person and remote. So it's a component of sharing information with students, content and everything, even in person, they're using that. Atlas uses a different platform.
Right. So if we go back next year, why wouldn't we offer that as well? Because we paid the money and it's still concurrent with the teachers teaching in the classroom. So, I mean, there's still going to be people out there that have, they still want these options, and I don't know why we wouldn't offer that, because it's concurrent. I don't know.
The teachers will still use Schoology for sure. But I think what Ms. Irvine is saying is that we are not going to ask our teachers to do both. Having kids on their computer while they're also teaching in-person students, we're saying that will not be an option for next year.
Okay. So I guess, Andy, maybe you have something to add to this, but I'm not sure. Is it extra work for them being okay? Okay, that's the component I wanted to know.
I was just going to say, and I know it's about the students, the community, and everything. Don't get me wrong, and obviously Neil and I are probably biased toward being teachers, but I'm going to tell you just from, and I have not done this. I have not done this because I'm not back. So, but from people that I know, it is very difficult, and I know it's an emergency situation right now, to try to keep a hold of 12 students here, answer their questions, teach, and make sure you're in the view of a camera if you're teaching something, and then run back to your computer and answer questions that they might have in a chat box, because they can't unmute themselves and answer questions when you're teaching in front of the class, unless you, as a teacher, is just sitting at your desk and not moving at all. So what I was going to say is, I understand what you're saying, Doc, and I'm sure some school districts may go to that or keep it, but that is a mental strain on some teachers, to the point that I've heard some teachers in my district that if this is the plan they're going to do, they're just retiring. And I know people say, oh, well, let teachers retire and this and that. But and I think I mentioned this before, in November, when I checked into retirement status for our union in Southfield, from November to November, there was the lady at the ORS told me there was a 31% increase in retirements at that time from November to November. I mean, that's a lot of teachers, and you're starting to see districts that are going back, that teachers are taking the medical or waited until they went back, and it doesn't look like it happened here much, but that are just retiring, like older districts. And there's some school districts, I know Berkeley's having a hell of a time up that way. They have like 6 or 7 classes that they don't have any teachers. They're back in person, but they don't have any teachers. They have subs. So, I think remote will phase away when everything calms down. This is just my opinion for the most part. I think Atlas, Plato, things like that are here to stay, to get options. But to do all 3 and do it the right way, I think it's almost to the point that you have 2 pieces of pie, but you're trying to feed 3 people. You just can't do those things average. We might as well try to do 2 things great, give 2 great options instead of 3 average options. And that's just my opinion. So.
Okay, no, I needed to hear that because I teach college classes, and we did the in-person and remote in the classroom, but it wasn't as difficult probably and as extensive as the K through 12 teachers. But thank you for that.
Hey, Rick, you got something for us?
Yeah, my only thoughts are, I'm not an educator. I've never done what Neil and Andrew do, or Darlene or Michelle, anyone else. But Andrew, you'd mentioned it, and I know we've all thought about this. Life in the future for educating is going to be different. And it probably was going to be different pre-COVID, but it definitely, now there's a lot of impetus and force and trend and push and shove to be different. So what I don't want us to, I think it's going to be important for us to be different in the future. Forget COVID. I think to be a successful school district and to be able to serve our students in Southgate well, we need to be different. The academy that the IB that Sharon, you're talking about, different modes of education. So with this discussion, the only thing I don't want to see happen, and I'll keep pushing the envelope on, is thinking different about the district that we are. We've got buildings. We always go to these buildings and we ring bells and we move from class to class, and that's the way it's always been, and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's probably a better mix, right? And so I just don't want to lose sight that I don't want to be so close-minded that we're going down, we're going to go in the same buildings, we're going to start at 8, end at 3, we're going to do all this stuff. I want to make sure we're wide open, and I think we need to be, and one of the things I think our customers will demand our choice. And so and obviously we need to operationalize that. It has to be real. We have to be able to live within budgets, but I don't want to close our thinking off. And you probably weren't thinking that way, but I will continually bang that drum.
Thank you. Let's just let me just kind of pull us back into the current discussion. We're talking about stuff that we need to talk about down the road a little bit more. That's why we have to meet every 30 days. So let's just kind of try to refocus back on our current continuity of learning plan And if Sharon, if you have anything else to bring forward to us regarding that, and if anybody has any questions on those first two topics, now would be the time. But as far as our future learning, I think that that's a discussion, a great discussion for later. Go ahead, Mr. Sage.
So Tim, one thing I want to bring up, and it's somewhat off topic, is with the continuation of the learning plan. Where are the touchscreen notebooks that we've ordered and supposed to? We're I'm just circling back to where they at. We paid for these months ago. Where are they at? I'm sick of questioning everything we're doing. Where are they at? Does anybody know?
The latest, is Wendy on our call right now? Is she on here? No. The latest that she's been told is it's been postponed again into March.
If that's the case, we shouldn't be paying full value for these things.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the thing that and Tim, I apologize, it's off topic, and I'm not trying to berate anybody, but if we're paying for something and we're not getting what we're paying for, we got to wait months and months and months. We shouldn't pay full value for it. Mm-hmm. These kids need these. Let's get them for the kids, or get a discount on it. Whatever happens, let's get it fixed right for the community.
Thank you. And Ms. Irvine, if you could just follow up with us after you talk with Wendy, if you have any further information on that.
Yep, I'll provide that in an update for everybody where we're at.
All right. Well, if there's no other discussion on the current topic, and you don't have anything else for us, I believe we should accept the motion to adjourn.
Well, just before you do, I just want to make sure everyone's clear that we're moving forward on this plan to ask families that are in elementary to tell us whether or not they want to come back. And we're doing that in the first week of March. So this won't change the decision that you would make on the first meeting of March. So the first meeting of March, you would still approve the 3 modes of instruction, which would be in-person, remote, and virtual for all students. So this won't actually be part of the plan. So I just want you to, if you don't have any objections, we're going to go ahead and move forward with that option to pull in more students at the higher class size starting March 1st.
Any other questions for Sharon?
I want to thank Sharon and Michelle and everybody else on board. So thank you for your time. I know it's beyond stressful, and thank you guys. I know it sucks. You're in the thick of it. We're not day to day with this. I am at work, and you guys are doing a hell of a job. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheers.
Yes, our principals are amazing. I'll tell you that. And Michelle, thank you for your work as well.
All right.
Mr. President, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. Do we have a second?
Support.
Supported by Dr. Pomponio. Any discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Grahowski, if you're still here, will you roll call us out?
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos.
Sorry, yeah.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Green, Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer.
Yes, thank you. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a great night.